From J.R. Smith getting a $50,000 fine for untying his opponent's shoes to a player taking a stand against the establishment, these are the most ridiculous fines in NBA history. It's no secret J.R. Smith's a walking meme legend, and he got a fine that'll make you laugh your butt off. During his time with the New York Knicks, J.R. had a habit of untying other players' shoes during games. Yeah, I know, weird move, right? Anyway, the Knicks had to step in and tell J.R. to cut it out. But did he listen? Nope, he went and did it again. Clearly, the Knicks' upper management was ineffective in addressing the issue, so the NBA had to step in and drop the hammer, and the league slapped JR with a $50,000 fine for his shenanigans. For many of us, that's a lot of dough, but I guess JR thought the entertainment value was worth it. JR's coach, Mike Woodson, was definitely not amused, calling Smith's behavior unprofessional and unacceptable, saying Smith needed to grow up and stop acting like a fool. Ouch, harsh words, coach. In JR's defense, he was a great scorer, and although he had a habit of doing some really strange stuff on the court, that's what made him so entertaining to watch.
I have a lot of fines from untying guys' shoelaces.
Yeah.
When did that start? Did you eventually work yourself out of it?
So I was doing it for a while, man, and I wouldn't do it every game, but I would do it with guys I know, guys I messed around with or whatever.
Speaking of entertainment, this next fine was no laughing matter, and it wasn't only a player that was fined, but an entire team. You won't believe what the Dallas Mavericks did during a game against the Chicago Bulls, and the resulting fine was a doozy.
Concerning the Dallas Mavericks, who were fined $750,000 by the league for what they did going into the last weekend of the season when they sat everybody, played Luka Doncic 1 quarter in a game against Chicago.
The game that had draft implications, and the Mavs rested not one, not two, but multiple players. Even more shocking was that they weren't eliminated from playoff contention. But the NBA wasn't having it and fined the Mavericks a whopping $750,000 for violating the player resting policy, and accused the Mavericks of intentionally losing the game to improve their chances of keeping their first-round pick in the 2023 NBA Draft. Yikes! NBA Executive Vice President Joe Dumars had some strong words for the Mavericks, saying their actions undermine the integrity of our sport and failed our fans and our league. Not something players want to hear first thing in the morning. But here's where it gets really interesting. If the Mavs land a top 10 pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, they get to keep it. But if the pick's 11th or lower, it goes to the New York Knicks as the final payment for a trade they made in January 2019. So it's safe to say the pressure's really on. Whatever the outcome, you'd think that people would learn from their mistakes. Speaking of which, one player who's had a tough time learning from their mistakes is Dwight Howard. You wouldn't believe what Dwight did on the court that earned him a $35,000 fine from the NBA. We all know Dwight likes to have a good time on the court, which is great, but this time he took it too far. During a game with the Charlotte Hornets, Dwight reportedly stuck his tongue out at the crowd. That's right, Howard stuck his tongue out like a second grader at the people booing him. But wait, it gets worse. Apparently, the gesture had a sexual connotation, and it got the NBA hot and bothered under the collar. Now, I don't want to assume anything, but let's just say Dwight's intentions weren't exactly innocent. He wanted to get a reaction from the crowd, and boy did he ever. The NBA had a reaction too, in the form of a huge fine. Howard has money to burn though, and $35,000 is like pocket change to him. So if that's the price he has to pay to have a little fun on the court, I'm sure he's more than happy to fork it over. This reminds me of Ben Simmons' mindset before he was slapped with massive fines. Ben's been in the headlines recently, and it wasn't for his basketball skills, but a disappearing act in a playoff game against the Atlanta Hawks. Fans went off on him, calling him the laughingstock of the NBA. And he wasn't taking it lying down either. He put his foot down, requested a trade, refused to join the team's training camp, and even cut all contact with anyone associated with the team. Do you know what happens when you miss training camp and preseason games while under contract? You get fined, baby. And boy, did Ben get fined. He was fined $381,181 on consecutive occasions and $360,305 earlier for off-court violations. That's a whole lot of dough. In only 10 days, from the 4th to the 14th of October, Simmons was fined a whopping $1,482,972. I mean, that's enough coin to buy a house in most parts of the country. country. But hey, that's what you get when you don't follow the rules. So let's hope he's learned his lesson and brings his A game in the future as well. But someone who clearly isn't trying to learn a lesson is none other than the fiery and passionate owner of the Dallas Mavericks, gazillionaire Mark Cuban. Some of you might be thinking, oh, I know all about Cuban and his antics. What's so special about this latest find? Well, my friends, hold on tight because this one's a doozy. During the 2017-18 NBA season, Cuban found himself in hot water for his comments about tanking. For those of you who don't know, tanking refers to intentionally losing games to secure a better draft pick for the upcoming season. It's a controversial practice that's been around for a while, and Cuban, being the outspoken guy that he is, had something to say about it. After a particularly rough season for the Mavericks, Cuban was chatting it up with NBA legend Julius Erving and said that tanking might be the team's best option to ensure stability heading into the draft. Cuban's comments didn't sit well with the NBA brass, and they slapped him with a hefty $600,000 fine, a figure that's enough to make anyone's jaw drop. Most people would be ticked off getting hit with a fine like that, but not Cuban, whose net worth is valued at $5.1 billion. To Cuban, 600 grand is like 50 bucks. And here's a fun fact. Did you know that Cuban likes to match his fines by donating the same amount to charities of his choice? That's right, the guy who's always getting in trouble with the NBA is also a big old softy who loves giving back to the community. But let's be real here, Cuban's fines are almost like a badge of honor for him at this point. He's racked up over 20 fines, totaling $3.1 million throughout his tenure as a Mavericks owner, and he'll never stop speaking his mind. Cuban's ideology has been adapted by another NBA superstar as well, Kyrie Irving, the man who made headlines for taking a stand against the establishment. The start definitely stirred the pot, and it got the sporting world buzzing. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, let me fill you in. A few years back, Kyrie refused to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The NBA mandated that all players had to get the jab, but the star basically said, "My body, my choice." He stood up for his beliefs, causing some serious drama.
I just really empathized and I understood their choice to say if you're not going to be vaccinated, fully vaccinated, then you can't be a full participant.
And this wasn't the first time Kyrie's had a run-in with the NBA. Back in 2021, while playing for the Brooklyn Nets, his presence on the court was sporadic. He kept leaving the team for days on end for what he said were personal reasons. Well, that can't be good for team morale, right? At least the NBA certainly didn't think so. They fined Kyrie a whopping $408,445. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. And get this, while he was off gallivanting, a video surfaced of him at a family gathering on social media. Eventually, he did come back to the team, but it cost him big time. Kyrie had to cough up a cool $1,633,780 for his absences from the Nets. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. From a player taking a stand against the establishment to J.R. Smith getting a $50,000 fine for untying his opponent's shoes. Those were the most ridiculous fines in NBA history.
Oh my, I can hit 20 more threes than he can because I untied his shoe. Like, are you serious right now?